With his loyal German shepherd, Rex, by his side, Ethan faced a storm of deceit, finding faith again through the courage of a child, and a miracle only God could have written. Snow fell quietly over Portland that night, painting the city in cold silver. War veteran Ethan Cole thought his battles were long over, but when he opened his Jeep door, a terrified 7-year-old girl appeared from the shadows whispering, "Don't speak. They're listening." Her name was Lila. What she revealed would uncover betrayal inside his own company, a plan to steal everything he had built. Winter pressed down on Portland like a heavy, silent prayer. The streets shimmered beneath a crust of ice, and the neon reflections from Helios Systems' glass tower quivered in the puddles of melting snow. Inside the nearly deserted parking lot, Ethan Cole, a 45-year-old war veteran turned security engineer, moved slowly toward his old Jeep Wrangler. His breath smoked in the freezing air. Ethan's frame was broad but worn, built by years of carrying too much. Gear, guilt, and ghosts. His once black hair, now streaked with iron gray, curled beneath a wool cap, a scar carved through his right eyebrow, a faint white line from a roadside explosion in Afghanistan. He had survived, but he never quite came back. His hands, cracked by the cold, still trembled sometimes, not from fear, but from the phantom adrenaline that refused to die. Beside him padded Rex, a 6-year-old German shepherd with amber eyes that mirrored his master's fatigue. Rex's coat was sable black and tan, thick against the chill. A faint limp marred his left hind leg, a souvenir from shrapnel during their last deployment. The dog had been Ethan's partner in war and now his only constant in peace. The two shared a silence deeper than most conversations. Ethan fished for his keys, the metallic jingle echoing faintly. That's when it came, the small, high-pitched voice slicing through the hush. "Shut up. Don't say a word." It was sharp, terrified, trembling, but commanding. Ethan froze, pulse quickening. He turned toward the Jeep. The interior light flicked on, revealing movement in the back seat. For a split second, his soldier's instincts flared. Hand reaching for the service knife still clipped under his coat. But Rex growled low, then stopped, ears twitching. In the shadowed back seat sat a little girl, no more than 7, huddled under a torn brown coat too large for her. Her skin was the warm brown of chestnut wood. Her hair coiled into tight braids, messy and frost-dusted. Wide eyes stared back at him, glistening with both defiance and fear. "Please," she whispered. "They can hear you. In the building. Don't let them know I'm here." Ethan's voice softened, instinct overriding confusion. "Who's listening, sweetheart?" She swallowed, glancing toward the Helios Tower, its top floor still lit. "Your boss, the tall one with the gray suit, and the blonde woman who laughs too loud. They said you'll sign tomorrow and lose everything." Ethan blinked. Marcus Grant, his business partner of 15 years, and Diana Brooks, the operations executive who had practically run the company. Marcus, the charmer, with a handshake that could convince devils to invest. Diana, efficient and ice-polished, her smile a razor behind lipstick. The girl couldn't know their names unless she'd heard something real. He opened the driver's door cautiously, sliding inside without a word. The heater coughed to life. Rex climbed into the passenger seat, eyes fixed on the child as though guarding her. "You broke into my car?" Ethan asked quietly. "The cleaning lady left it open," she said, rubbing her hands for warmth. "I needed to hide. I heard them upstairs. They said you're too trusting, that you'll sign papers tomorrow, and then the company won't be yours anymore." Her tone, steady but shaking, hit him harder than he expected. For years, Ethan had buried his instincts under professionalism and polite boardroom smiles, but the soldier in him recognized danger in her certainty. "What's your name?" he asked. "Lila," she said. "Lila Johnson. My grandma used to clean that building before she got sick." Ethan nodded slowly. "And how old are you, Lila?" "7. But Grandma says I listen like I'm 40. A flicker of pride cut through her fear. He almost smiled, but his mind churned. Marcus and Diana plotting? It didn't fit, or maybe it fit too well. He'd ignored the subtle signs, the changed passwords, the late-night meetings, the way Diana's emails had turned strangely formal. "Why tell me this?" he asked. "You don't even know me." Lila's small shoulders lifted. "Because they talked about you like you were stupid. My grandma said when you see someone getting stepped on and you can help, you help. Otherwise, next time it's you." Ethan looked away. The windshield fogged with his breath, and for a moment he saw his reflection. A tired man, haunted by the wars he'd fought abroad and the ones waiting at home. "You've got more courage than most grown men I know," he murmured. Outside, the wind howled down the empty street, scattering snow across the lot like ash. Inside the Jeep, silence stretched, broken only by Rex's steady breathing. Then Ethan said, "You can't stay here, it's too cold." "I don't have anywhere else," Lila said. Her eyes met his. They weren't begging. They were stating a fact of life she'd accepted too early. He sighed, rubbing his temple. "All right, there's a diner down the road. Warm food, no questions. You'll come with me. Rex doesn't bite unless someone deserves it." At the word bite, Rex perked up, tail thumping once against the seat. The ghost of a smile touched Ethan's lips. The diner, Rosie's haven, glowed like a candle in the storm. Inside, the air smelled of coffee and cinnamon. Ethan ordered 2 burgers and hot chocolate. Lila devoured hers in silence, the steam fogging her glasses. When she finally spoke, her voice was small but certain. "They said tomorrow's the big day, something about Japanese investors, and that after you sign, you'll have to look for another job." Ethan's stomach twisted. Tomorrow, 2 p.m., the merger presentation Marcus had planned, the culmination of months of negotiation. He had trusted Marcus completely, trusted Diana to manage every document. He had even given her power of attorney for certain legal transfers. He forced a calm he didn't feel. "You're sure you heard that?" Lila nodded, licking chocolate from her fingers. And the blonde woman said, "He trusts us like a loyal dog." Ethan looked at Rex. The shepherd tilted his head, amber eyes bright with unspoken understanding. He leaned back, exhaling slowly. "Well," he muttered, "maybe the dog's about to learn new tricks." For the first time that night, Lila giggled. The sound was fragile, like something the world hadn't heard from her in a long time. Ethan studied her. Thin arms, patched coat, the faint tremor in her hands, and something shifted inside him. The soldier who'd stopped believing in miracles felt a faint ember of faith. She hadn't stumbled into his life. She'd been sent. As snow thickened outside, Ethan glanced through the frosted window toward Helios Tower's distant lights. He'd built that company with loyalty and blood, just as he'd built his life. Now both were under attack, but he wasn't the same man Marcus thought he was. He looked at Lila and Rex, the girl and the dog who had appeared out of nowhere to warn him. "You did good tonight," he said softly. "You saved something important." Lila smiled shyly. "Grandma always said, 'God sends help in strange packages.'" Ethan turned the phrase over in his mind as Rex laid his head on his lap. Outside, snow kept falling, blanketing the city like a clean slate. And for the first time in years, Ethan Cole felt the faint hum of purpose returning, a soldier's instinct waking up, one heartbeat at a time. The wind rattled the glass windows of Rosie's Haven as Ethan Cole sat opposite the little girl who had just rewritten the course of his night, and perhaps his life. Snow kept falling outside, coating parked cars like silent witnesses. The diner was nearly empty, save for a tired waitress wiping the counter and the hum of an old jukebox playing something soft from the 70s. Lila had finished her burger, crumbs dotting her coat, while Rex lay curled beneath the table, his ears twitching every time someone passed by. Ethan stirred his untouched coffee, the spoon clinking against the cup like a ticking clock. "You did the right thing," he said finally. His voice was gravel, worn by years of shouting over gunfire and silence alike. Lila's small shoulders shrugged. "Grandma always said if you see something bad, you speak up, even if it's scary." Ethan nodded, admiring her courage, but his mind was already working like a soldier in enemy terrain, calculating, verifying, anticipating. Marcus Grant had been more than a business partner. He'd been the man who helped Ethan build Helios systems from nothing after the war. Marcus was slick, tall, early 50s, hair silvered at the temples, the kind of man who smiled with perfect teeth but cold eyes. He knew how to charm investors and crush competitors in the same breath. Ethan had trusted him the way soldiers trust their unit, completely. That was his first mistake. And Diana Brooks. Ethan pictured her now, with her golden hair always in a tight bun, her lips painted the color of wine. She had an elegance that could slice through a boardroom. For 10 years, she'd been his executive assistant, loyal and tireless, or so he thought. He remembered how she used to bring him coffee before meetings, always remembering 2 sugars, never cream. How strange that the smallest gestures could hide the sharpest knives. "You look mad," Lila said softly. "I'm disappointed," he replied, the words heavy. "I fought in wars, but I never thought betrayal would come from people I considered family." The waitress came by. Her name tag read Martha. She was in her 60s, short and round with soft gray curls, the kind of woman who had seen too many winters but still found kindness in her smile. "Another coffee, hun?" she asked. "Sure," Ethan said, his tone polite but distant. Martha refilled the cup, glancing at Lila. "Your daughter?" Ethan hesitated, then smiled faintly. Something like that. When she walked away, Lila grinned. "You could have said yes." "Didn't want to lie," Ethan said. "Even small lies have long shadows." The words surprised him. They sounded like something his old commanding officer would have said. Captain Raymond Harris, now a voice that still haunted him at night. "Trust but verify, soldier. Loyalty's a two-way street." Ethan reached into his jacket and pulled out his phone. No new messages. He scrolled through his contacts, his thumb hovering over Marcus's name. He could call, confront him, demand the truth. But instinct told him to wait. In combat, the man who moved first usually died first. "Lila," he said quietly, "when you were hiding, did you hear anything else?" She thought for a moment, eyes squinting like she was replaying the memory. "They said something about Japan and documents. The blonde woman said, 'He trusts us too much. He'll sign without reading.'" Then they laughed. I didn't like that laugh. Ethan clenched his jaw. "Neither do I." The bell above the door jingled. A tall man entered, brushing snow from his shoulders. His overcoat was navy, tailored, expensive. Ethan recognized him instantly. Marcus Grant, the man himself. The world seemed to narrow. Marcus spotted Ethan, surprise flashing across his face, then smooth charm took over. "Ethan, I didn't expect you here this late. Burning the midnight oil, huh?" Lila shrank in her seat, instinctively clutching Rex's collar. The dog's ears flattened. A low growl rumbled deep in his chest. Ethan forced a calm smile. "Marcus, couldn't sleep. Too much on my mind." Marcus slid into the booth across from him uninvited, his cologne faint but sharp. "Understandable. Tomorrow's big, my friend. The Japanese investors fly in at noon. By this time tomorrow, Helios Systems will be global. We'll both be rich enough to retire early." Ethan stirred his coffee again, the same clinking sound filling the silence. "You and Diana have been working hard on that merger." "Of course," Marcus said, flashing that practiced grin. "You can always count on us." Ethan looked at him, really looked. The slight twitch under the left eye, the faint smudge of fatigue behind the mask of confidence. He'd seen that look before, in soldiers who'd already chosen betrayal but hadn't faced the consequence yet. "I'm sure I can," Ethan said evenly. "You heading back to the office?" "Just came from there. Diana's still checking the paperwork. You know her, obsessive with details." Ethan nodded. "Yeah, obsessive." Marcus's eyes flicked to Lila. "New friend?" "Stray," Ethan said simply. "Found her freezing outside. She's fine now." "Well," Marcus said, standing up, "don't stay up too late. Tomorrow we make history." He gave a last charming grin and walked out into the storm. The bell above the door rang, and the air seemed to breathe again. Ethan sat still, muscles tight as steel cables. Lila whispered, "He's the one, isn't he?" "Yes," Ethan said. "He is." He glanced at the window. Marcus's silhouette disappeared into the blur of snow. "But now he knows I'm still awake." Rex growled again, as if agreeing. Ethan looked down at the dog. "Yeah, buddy, the war's back on." For a long moment he said nothing more. Just listened. To the snow. To the ticking clock. To the pulse of something rising inside him he hadn't felt in years. Resolve. He wasn't just going to survive this betrayal. He was going to dismantle it piece by piece. He turned back to Lila. "You're staying with me tonight. Safer that way." "Won't your wife mind?" she asked innocently. Ethan froze for a heartbeat. "No wife," he said quietly. "Not anymore." He didn't elaborate, but in the reflection of the diner window he saw a flash of memory. The photo he'd burned years ago. The woman smiling in uniform, her name stitched over the heart. Captain Laura Cole. Killed by an IED on their last joint operation. The grief had hardened him, left him half alive. Maybe that was why he never saw Marcus's betrayal coming. He'd stopped believing anyone could hurt him more than life already had. He stood, tossing some bills onto the table. "Come on, kid. Let's get you somewhere warm." Outside, the snow had thickened, streetlights glowing through it like halos. Lila climbed into the back seat, wrapping herself in an old army blanket. Rex leapt in beside her, his tail thumping once before he settled protectively at her feet. As Ethan started the engine, he looked back at the glowing diner sign fading behind them. For the first time since the war, he felt purpose cutting through the numbness. Tomorrow, Marcus and Diana would make their move, but they had no idea the soldier they thought was tamed was awake again. And this time, he wasn't fighting alone. The morning of the merger dawned gray and cruel. Portland lay beneath a thin veil of mist. The snow on the rooftops turned to crusted ice. Inside his apartment, Ethan Cole stood before the mirror, adjusting the collar of his dark winter coat. The reflection staring back wasn't that of a corporate man. It was a soldier dressing for another kind of battle. The faint scar above his brow caught the pale light. Beside him, Rex paced in silence, sensing the change in his master's rhythm. The slow, deliberate breathing that meant danger was close. In the living room, Lila sat cross-legged on the couch, wearing the oversized jacket Ethan had given her. Her small hands held a cup of hot cocoa, steam curling into the air. She looked both worried and proud. "You're really going there?" she asked. "I have to," Ethan said, tightening his gloves. "They think today's their victory. I'm going to let them believe that, until it's too late." "Will they get in trouble?" "If justice still works in this world," he said, "they will." The door opened, and Gabriel Torres stepped in. He wore a long black coat and carried a weathered leather satchel filled with files and evidence drives. His face was a map of exhaustion, but his gray eyes were alive, sharp as ever. "You ready, soldier?" Ethan nodded. "Been ready for years." Gabriel smirked. "Good. I've already alerted 2 federal investigators I trust. They'll be watching from across the street, waiting for my signal. When you expose the files, I'll send them the live feed." Ethan looked at him. "And Lila?" "She'll stay with Clara Jennings today." At that, Clara appeared from the kitchen, carrying a paper bag of sandwiches. She was in her 60s, tall and broad-shouldered, her gray hair tied back in a no-nonsense bun. Her nurse's hands were steady, her gaze kind but firm. "Don't worry about her, Ethan," Clara said. "She'll be safe with me. You just do what needs to be done." Lila looked at him with wide eyes. "You'll come back, right?" Ethan crouched to her level, his rough palm brushing a strand of hair from her face. "I always come back." Rex nudged his arm with his nose, as if sealing the promise. By noon, the Helios Systems tower gleamed against the pale sky. The lobby buzzed with activity. Assistants in sleek suits, the hum of foreign voices, the faint scent of coffee and cologne. Upstairs, in the executive conference room, Marcus Grant stood near the glass wall, looking out over the frozen river. His reflection in the window was that of a man who believed he'd won. His silver hair was perfectly combed, his dark suit impeccable. Diana Brooks sat at the table arranging folders and contracts, her expression composed but her fingers twitching ever so slightly. When Ethan entered, silence fell for a heartbeat. Then Marcus turned, smiling broadly. "Ethan, right on time as always. You remember our guests from Tokyo?" 3 men in dark suits rose politely, bowing slightly. Ethan nodded, shaking hands mechanically. The older one introduced himself as Mr. Hiroshi Yamamoto, calm-eyed, professional, with a translator beside him. "Shall we begin?" Marcus said, his tone light, almost playful. Ethan took a seat at the far end of the table. The snow outside glowed white through the glass walls. He glanced at Diana. Her eyes didn't meet his. The presentation began. Marcus spoke with smooth confidence, explaining the merger's mutual benefits. Diana clicked through slides showing fake projections and doctored charts. Ethan let them talk, watching their rehearsed rhythm, their arrogance, the way they looked at him as if he were already defeated. When the final document was placed before him, Diana slid a pen across the table. "Right here, Ethan," she said sweetly. "As soon as you sign, we can toast to a new chapter." Ethan took the pen but didn't move. "You know," he said quietly, "this room smells different today." Marcus blinked. "Excuse me?" "Smells like cheap lies and expensive perfume." He leaned back. "Reminds me of briefings in Kabul before everything went wrong." Diana's smile faltered. "What are you talking about?" Ethan met her gaze, steady, unflinching. I'm talking about the shell companies you created under fake R&D budgets. The money funneled through Yamamoto Holdings into offshore accounts. The emails you deleted, the files you forgot were mirrored. Marcus's face hardened. You don't know what you're saying. Oh, I do. Ethan reached into his coat and pulled out a small flash drive, placing it gently on the table. This holds every transaction, every message, every fake signature you and Diana ever approved. The room froze. Marcus's jaw tightened, and Diana's hand twitched toward her phone. Before she could move, the door opened. Gabriel Torres entered, flanked by 2 federal agents in dark coats. Their badges flashed silver in the light. Marcus Grant, Diana Brooks, Gabriel said, voice calm as ice. You're under investigation for embezzlement, fraud, and money laundering. The Japanese investors exchanged shocked glances, their translator whispering urgently. Marcus stood abruptly, his charm collapsing. You can't do this. This is a setup. Ethan's voice was low but steady. No, Marcus, this is justice. Diana pushed back her chair. He's lying, that flash drive is fake. Gabriel smirked, opening his satchel. Then I suppose these audio recordings are fake too? He pressed a button on a small speaker. Diana's own voice filled the room, cold and unmistakable. Once he signs, he's finished. He'll lose everything, and by the time he realizes it, we'll be on a beach in Monaco. Marcus turned on her, furious. You recorded that? You idiot! Enough! One of the agents barked. They stepped forward, reading the charges as they cuffed both of them. Ethan stood slowly, watching the collapse unfold. Marcus tried to lunge toward him, his face twisted with rage. You think this changes anything? You can't erase me, Cole. I built this company with you. Ethan didn't flinch. You built half a company? I built the conscience. As Marcus and Diana were escorted out, Gabriel turned to Ethan. You handled that like a general. Ethan exhaled, tension draining from his shoulders. I've seen enough destruction to know when it's time to rebuild. The Japanese delegation remained seated, silent. Finally, Mr. Yamamoto stood. Mr. Cole, he said through the translator, your integrity saved more than your company. It saved your honor. We will continue our partnership with you alone. Ethan bowed his head slightly. Thank you. Outside, the snow began to fall again, gentle this time. In the parking lot below, Rex waited by the Jeep, tail wagging as Ethan approached. He crouched down, scratching the dog behind the ear. It's done, buddy. The war's over. From behind him came a small voice, Lila, running toward him, escorted by Clara. She threw her arms around his waist. You did it! Ethan smiled, a warmth spreading through the cold air. No, he said softly. We did it. Rex barked once, as if to agree. For the first time in years, Ethan Cole felt the peace of a man who had faced the storm and walked out whole. Winter faded slowly from Portland, but the cold lingered in the air like the memory of an old wound. 6 weeks had passed since the day Marcus Grant and Diana Brooks were arrested in the glass tower of Helios Systems. Snow still lined the edges of the Willamette River, but spring sunlight now cut through the clouds, gilding the city with faint warmth. Inside his office on the top floor, Ethan Cole stood by the window, his hands folded behind his back, watching the river thaw. The skyline shimmered, reflected in the water like a second world, cleaner, calmer, freer. Helios Systems was alive again. The tension that had once haunted its corridors was gone. Employees spoke with relief, investors returned, and the company's logo once more stood for integrity instead of deceit. But for Ethan, redemption was a quiet thing. He had no interest in celebration. He found peace in small rituals: early coffee, long walks with Rex, and the sound of Lila's laughter filling his once empty apartment. The girl had changed in those 6 weeks. Her eyes still carried the wisdom of hardship, but her smile came easier now. She was enrolled in school through a foundation grant, her name officially listed as Lila Johnson Cole, while legal adoption moved through the courts. She called him Dad sometimes, hesitantly at first, then with the certainty of belonging. That morning, she sat cross-legged on the carpet, helping Rex balance a biscuit on his nose. "Stay," she ordered, giggling as the big German shepherd waited obediently, his amber eyes locked on hers. "Okay now." Rex snapped it from the air with perfect timing. She clapped her hands, and he wagged his tail proudly. Ethan smiled from the doorway. "You're turning him into a circus act." "He likes it," she said, pretending to scold him. "Besides, he's smarter than half the people in your company." Ethan chuckled. "You're not wrong." He crossed the room and sat beside her, the sunlight glinting off the silver streaks in his hair. "Big day today," he said. "You remember what's happening?" Lila nodded. "The thing for soldiers and kids." "That's right." He handed her a folded document. "The official name's the Soldiers and Shepherds Foundation. We're going to help veterans who came home broken, and kids like you who never had a home to begin with. You'll be the first youth ambassador." Her eyes widened. "I get a title?" "You get a purpose," he said softly. "Titles don't matter much. Purpose does." A gentle knock came from the door. Gabriel Torres stepped in, wearing his usual dark coat and carrying a folder under one arm. His face was less guarded these days, his dry humor softened by time. "Hope I'm not interrupting family time," he said. Ethan grinned. "You're family too, old man." Gabriel smirked. "Careful. I'll make you regret saying that." He handed over the folder. Final reports. The feds wrapped everything up. Marcus got 12 years. Diana 8. They'll serve federal time. No parole. Ethan took the file without looking. "Justice isn't revenge, but it's something." Gabriel nodded. "You did good, Ethan. You fought a war without firing a shot." "I had help," Ethan said, glancing at Lila, who was now drawing something on a notepad. Rex, himself, and Gabriel standing together under a tree. The older man smiled. "You found your unit again?" "I did," Ethan said. "Only difference is this one doesn't leave anyone behind." Later that afternoon, the Foundation's opening ceremony filled the hall of a renovated Veterans Center downtown. Flags hung on the walls, their colors softened by light. Guests filled the seats. Veterans in uniform, children from shelters, journalists and city officials. On stage, Ethan adjusted the microphone, uncomfortable with the attention. His suit felt foreign, too polished for a man who preferred boots and flannel. He looked out at the crowd and found Lila in the front row, sitting between Clara Jennings and Gabriel. Rex lay beside her, calm and regal, wearing a vest embroidered with the Foundation's new emblem, a soldier's hand resting gently on a dog's head beneath a silver cross. When Ethan began to speak, his voice was quiet, but carried the weight of truth. "I spent most of my life fighting wars. Some were on foreign soil, others here at home. I learned that enemies don't always carry weapons. Sometimes they wear suits and smiles. But I also learned something else. Loyalty isn't about orders. It's about love. About standing up for what's right even when no one's watching." He paused, scanning the room. This foundation isn't about me. It's about second chances. For soldiers who've lost their faith. For children who've lost their families. For anyone who needs to be reminded that good still exists. Because sometimes, God's miracles come in strange packages. His eyes found Lila's. Mine came wrapped in a torn coat and a voice that told me to shut up. Laughter rippled gently through the crowd. After the applause faded, Lila climbed on stage with a piece of paper in her hands. Her voice trembled at first, but grew stronger with each word. My dad says heroes come in all shapes and sizes. Some wear uniforms, some wear collars. Some are just trying to be brave enough to help. I don't know much about war, but I know what it's like to be invisible. And now, I know what it's like to be seen. The room fell silent. Even Gabriel's hardened expression softened. When the ceremony ended, people came forward. Veterans shaking Ethan's hand, parents thanking him, reporters scribbling quotes. But Ethan barely heard them. He watched Lila and Rex playing by the window, snow melting outside into thin rivers of light. Gabriel joined him quietly. So what now, soldier? Ethan smiled faintly. Now we build. And after that? Then we rest. Gabriel looked at him with amusement. You ever rest? Maybe not, Ethan admitted. But for the first time, I want to. That night, they drove home under a sky washed clean by snowmelt. Lila fell asleep in the back seat, her head resting against Rex's flank. The shepherd's steady breathing filled the car. Ethan kept one hand on the steering wheel and one on Rex's collar, as if grounding himself to the two beings who had saved his soul. At a red light, he glanced at Lila's reflection in the rearview mirror, the peaceful rise and fall of her chest, the faint smile in her sleep, and whispered, You were right, kid. God really does send help in strange packages. The light turned green. The city glowed behind him like a memory he was finally ready to leave behind. Ahead, the road stretched toward the mountains, white-capped and eternal. Ethan drove on, his heart quiet, his promise kept. For the first time in years, he wasn't running from the past. He was driving toward a future, one built on loyalty, love, and the miracle that sometimes the smallest voice can save the strongest man. As the snow melts over Portland and the river runs free again, Ethan Cole's story reminds us of something timeless, that miracles don't always arrive with thunder or light. Sometimes they come softly, in the voice of a frightened child, in the loyalty of an old dog, or in the quiet courage to stand for what's right when the world turns cold. Faith isn't about what we see. It's about what we choose to believe even in the silence. God works through unexpected hands. A soldier burdened by the past. A child who dared to speak truth. A loyal companion who never stopped believing. And maybe, just maybe, He's working through you too. Wherever you are, however broken you feel, there's still a purpose waiting in the storm. If this story touched your heart, share it, so that someone out there who's losing faith might find it again. Type Amen in the comments if you believe that God still sends His angels in the most ordinary forms. And before you go, subscribe to this channel, so together we can keep telling stories of loyalty, hope, and the small miracles that keep faith alive. May God bless you, protect your family, and remind you, no matter how cold the winter gets, His light still shines through.